All right, episode 6. So we've talked everything from state, we've talked seasons and tags, scouting, we've talked early season and kind of rut action, calling specifically. But early on, we talked about how you often will pick like a later season hunt because it weeds hunters out and so on. So yeah, I figured we start and we spend today kind of talking about like how you would handle like a rifle season type hunt, later season type hunt for elk.
So rifle, anything post-rut is going to be significantly impacted by weather, much more though than what your rut will. So obviously if you have nice cool mornings and the pressure is nice, the moon phase is right, like the rut is more amplified. But I've also been out on 90-degree days where the bulls are freaking going nuts because there's a hot cow in the area. It's more determined by her than it is the weather. Rifle season, late season, much more the opposite. Weather is king. It determines almost everything. Then you have pressure mixed into that, and then where they're at after the rut as far as how depleted are they. If you shoot a bull prior to the rut, he's a lot heavier and a lot stronger than what he is after the rut because he's been fighting and rutting, obviously, right? So they lose a lot of weight just like our whitetails do. So what I'll focus on is if I have a general tag, obviously you have a much bigger window. If you're looking at Colorado as opposed to like Wyoming or Montana, you have to pick one of the 4 weeks. So first, second, third, and fourth rifle. And some of those are draw, some of those are over the counter. And you can kind of pick based on the experience that you want to have, based on your skill set, based on your tolerance for weather, what your approach is with that. What I'm looking at this year is fourth season rifle because I'm looking at historical data of when they have bad winters, what do the elk do? When do they come down from elevation? When do they all move off of the public and into the private bottoms? And where can I go to intercept that activity? The other thing that you look at in those areas is historical migrations. So when they do get that weather, there is historic migration, just like caribou. This is the rough route that they.
So you're looking for historic migration maps, and you're looking where they're going through.
And those layers are on Onyx. You can see exactly where they are. Everybody can, so that's part of the equation too. And you try to find the little hidey holes that the bachelor groups of bulls, they've now left the cows for the most part. The younger bulls will still be.
The dudes are back together.
The boys are back together. They're beat up. They're tired. They're just trying to survive. Now, the spikes, the raghorns, even some of your younger 5 points might still be in with the cows, but just like an old whitetail, after the rut's done, he doesn't want interaction with the others.
He's just doing his own thing. Something that I like about that, where it's like you battle and then you have the, it's honorable. Like you're like, all right, we're putting our swords down. We're going to rest.
Now we're done.
We're done.
And this is when they're most vulnerable from a survival standpoint. Not the most vulnerable, like we can kill them easily, but that's when mountain lions, wolves, bears are about to go into, if you're a bear, you're about to go into hibernation. That's when they're focusing on these bachelor groups of elk. The wolves, a little bit easier to take advantage of. Groups of bulls, isolated, tired,
surrounded,
2 feet of snow, right? So you have to kind of go into it with the same mindset of they might not be moving far. If they haven't pushed down off the high country, they might be in the bottom already. Figure out exactly where they're at, or roughly where they're at, and then where they need to live inside of that little bubble. So where they have food, where they have waters everywhere at this point, they probably have snow, where they have isolation, and where can they hide from side-by-side traffic and outfitter tents and things like that. Where are these little pockets that you can find where they go to survive?
Quick shout out to another amazing sponsor of ours, Kifaru International. If you're like us and love hunting in some of the toughest places, you know how crucial having the right gear is. Kifaru makes some of the toughest, most reliable backpacks and tents out there, and it's all made right here in America. Whether you're hunting in the backcountry or headed to your favorite deer stand, Kifaru has you covered. Keep your eyes out this year, especially as they're launching a ton of amazing new products like the new Arc frame that just came out. So next time you gear up for an adventure, make sure to check out Kifaru International. So going back to our scouting question and, our scouting episode. So like you're scouting for like late season, like what types of terrain? Are you looking at topography, benches? What are you looking for to find these guys?
Similar stuff as far as what I look for during rut as far as bedding goes. However, I do like to find spots that are a little bit further in because I've found some really good rutting activity close to the road. that time of year, I'm looking at what's close to private where they can get really good food, like pivot bottoms and things like that. Not necessarily obviously hunting on the private because that's not always an option, but in close proximity to it. And then the other thing that I look for is just a lot of downfall, dead timber, stuff that's tipped over that they can just kind of hide in that.
Hide up in, just like a deer.
Just like a deer. But the broken part of that country where they can go out and get sun on the warmer parts of the day when it's cold, they can go out and kind of bask in the sun a little bit. You'll see a lot of their movements, like they'll be in their bed before light, but then they get up at 10 a.m. to feed a little bit. They might come out onto a hillside for 15 minutes and feed, and then they go right back into that timber. So what I'll do is get to a high vantage and glass, and I'll look not only for elk, but in the fresh snow, obvious signs of tracks on the side of the hill, because it's probably going to be somewhere in there if it's roughly fresh. If you have fresh snow, that's the biggest killer to a late season elk bull particularly, is being able to find his tracks and then just kind of dog him to his death.
You just follow him?
Yep. It's kind of like the old
like still hunting for deer.
Kind of, yeah, but you're not necessarily walking right into them and jumping them and shooting them. You're following this track into an area where you can walk in and be like, okay, I think I'm fairly close. Now I should find advantage and put the rest of this puzzle together. Where is his one little spot that he's coming out to feed? Where is his hole that he's hiding in? And post up on that one spot, wait for him to come out and feed, and that's usually your best chance.
So when you're following his tracks, like for deer, for example, you'll be able to tell when a deer is about to bed, because for a while maybe they're just walking. You can tell they're walking straight, and right before they bed, they start to feed a little bit.
Yeah.
They kind of do this. Elk do the same type.
They get cozy once they're in that bedroom again. So you'll see where it's pawed off on the side and a little bit more evidence that he's comfortable there. He's not just moving through. Same as a deer. The other thing with them too is rather than just kind of going in and pushing an area out or bumping into something that you're not familiar with, if you do stay on that ridge, you might see other things that influence that a little bit more unfold. Like you might see another hunter, another camp, something like that, or wolves, bears, whatever, something that might influence that this is always happening over here. He's just trying to isolate. He's just trying to survive. So this might make more sense. Or there's too much activity going on in here. There's too many cows here. I've seen that before too, where if you find a pile of cows and spikes, they're probably not right there.
No, but the bulls just don't want to be by them?
It's just like whitetail, where they just don't want the stress of the other animals around them at that point.
Yeah.
So they're probably a ridge or two over, maybe even further. They could be close in proximity, but usually those older bulls that have seen season after season after season are completely isolating themselves in that later part of the season.
OnX is the title sponsor of our podcast here at the Fair Chase, and it's a must-have app for all of us who love to explore the outdoors. Whether you're hunting or hiking or fly fishing, OnX gives you detailed, accurate maps right at your fingertips. With property boundaries, topographical features, and trail data, you'll always know where you are and where you're headed. You'll also likely be able to figure out where that big buck is headed to. Plus, their offline maps mean you're covered even in the most remote locations. OnX is the ultimate tool for outdoor navigation, making every adventure safer and more enjoyable. Download OnX today and explore with confidence.
Now, if you get the earlier part, some of these rifle seasons start early October.
Right.
And in a lot of those cases, just like our ruts seem to be going later and later and later due to weather, due to...
Yeah, weather is getting worse later and later.
Yeah, that, and then if you look at the ratio too, so like if the ratio of your unit is 20 bulls per 100 cows, some of those cows might not have gotten bred.
Right.
So
they come back around second sight, just like deer. Second rut.
There's still a little bit of that rutting activity that might happen in those early phases. You might not have that snow, but you might get a bugle here and there. So it's kind of a blend. That month of October can mean a lot of different things. It can be very much like a late rut type hunt. And it can be like when I killed that bull, very much like a late season post-rut survival situation.
And try not to die on the side of the mountain.
And then if you look into the November months in Colorado, then you're definitely feeling more like a late season, like
cold.
There's no running activity. It is purely survival at that point.
And you're just looking to cut them off where they'll be.
Cutting them off, or even planning on where pressure is pushing them to.
Yeah.
So if you know you're hunting Unit 18 in Colorado, which gives a ton of rifle tags, and you know that there's a a bunch of groups camped up at this trailhead and you've seen elk up on this mountain the day before season, try to pre-plan what their next move is and get ahead of it. Don't always be one step behind of these herds. Sometimes they're very easy to see. You can glass them from a long ways. This is probably the one time on an elk hunt that I would take a spotter, or I would take a big set of like stabilized 18s or something like that. You're spending a lot more time glassing, looking at the map, planning, and not so much the running and calling, and you're exerting a lot of energy in a different way. It's more of a mental churn than it is a bull in a chime shop.
Right. So you're trying to, and a lot of it's trying to stay warm. I mean,
yeah.
Right.
I mean, like, plan accordingly, bring the puffies, like the
puffy pants. You're not a puffy pants guy. I'm surprised by that.
Yeah, not really, but I'm also the warm-blooded, but I'm not afraid to like build a fire and just hang out.
During a hunt, you'll build a fire.
While I'm glassing, I'll build a fire, stay warm, stay comfortable. I don't want to be focused on how cold I am. I want to be focused on finding what the next move is. So
yeah, if
a fire does that, then it does that.
What's, as you've done late season hunts, what's like one thing that always sticks with you that you try to remember when you're out there hunting? This episode is also brought to you by 2O Gear, innovators in technical hunting clothing. 2O is a newer company. It's based right here in Michigan, and whether you're hunting elk in the mountains or chasing antelope in the plains or traipsing through swamps after that ruddy buck, 2O has you covered with premium jackets and pants, merino wool layers, everything you could possibly need to stay comfortable in the woods. Their products are engineered for functionality and durability, ensuring you stay protected in any conditions. Plus, their camo is really effective. We're big fans. So don't take our word for it, though. Go to 2ogear.com and check it out.
So, like, tactics aside, assuming that you're hunting in cold weather, like, the assumption is that it's a lot easier to keep meat good. Because in the rut we're hunting, it's like...
You got cold weather and
Yeah, it's 80, 90 degrees sometimes during the rut. And that's like the first thing that you freak out about once the animal's down is getting them cooled down. And people get too lax about that during that late season, particularly if there's a lot of snow on the ground. So if an elk dies and there's 2 feet of snow, the side he's dead on is completely insulated by the snow. An elk's 104 degrees when he's alive.
Really? You just know that off the top of your head? 104 degrees?
104.
Good. Write that down.
So the heat has nowhere to go because it's insulated by that snow. The first thing you should ideally do if you can is flip him over to get that hot side expelling some heat. People kind of assume when they shoot one, like if you shoot one across the canyon and it's cold out, it's right before dark, he came out to feed and you watch him slide down the hill. I'll just go get him in the morning. It's cold out. He'll be fine. I don't care if you're cold. You should go down there, tend to that animal, get the meat off the bone, or at least get it up into game bags, get it hung up because it allows that meat to cool. Once you have it in that state, now you got all the time in the world because it's cold. It can freeze or frost up or anything like that. But until that hide is off of them, you're still kind of under that same clock.
Interesting. Well, maybe we put a pause there, put a pin in that, because maybe next week we come back, we talk like meat care. So like, I mean, we've done it a ton of different ways now and a ton of different ideas. So maybe we end here, we come back and we talk about like, you got an elk down, what do you do?